Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Laura Swenson, and I had chapter 12 out of our Critical Issues in Education book, Technology and Learning. I had the second essay, which was that technology can subvert education. So let's talk about what this video presentation is going to contain. It's going to talk about how we need to evaluate technology on a case-by-case basis, that not all technology is beneficial or its use, and that when you mandate it or when you mandate the curriculum that comes with it, you can remove teachers from the teaching equation. Let's also talk about what this is not. This is not a call to completely ban technology. It has its use, it has its place. This is also not a complete critique on technology for the exact same reasons. But it needs to be used with discernment, and that leads us into our first point. Technology needs to be used and evaluated on a case-by-case basis. The same way that we pick and choose curriculum or any other teaching tool, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and we need to apply this to technology. New does also not equal better. Just because something is the latest and greatest doesn't actually mean it's the greatest. For example, I work in Idaho, and that needs to be taken into context when evaluating what tools we can use, because I work in rural Idaho. Most of our population says moo. And as a result, there's a lot of difficulties we have. We have a lot of power outages at our school. Water lines break often in the cold. And we also have our Wi-Fi go down, which leads us into a disaster that we experienced last year. There was a push by the district to get math and science into a completely online curriculum. What we already had online were grading and our own drive. So all of our drives, everything we did as teachers, we created while at the school, went into a cloud-based personal drive. We were used to this, and we were also used to the Wi-Fi going down and having to work around this. So we couldn't always enter grades, and we could not always access things we had made for teaching. This was problematic, but we had learned to work around it. But this push with the online curriculum also came with the removal of a lot of textbooks. Most of our textbooks went away. We did get new textbooks to accompany the online curriculum, but we only got a classroom set, so I had 30. And the problem was that last year we had a perfect storm. The Wi-Fi went down, and with it went our online curriculum because we could not access it. Not only did it go down, but it didn't stay down for just a few days or a few weeks or a few months. It was out for pretty much the entire semester for most of the district. The high school, it actually stayed out until about a month into the next semester. This also meant that we could not access things from previous years for backups. We had to make everything that morning or on the spot, and mainly at home, because again, our storage on our own computers was very limited because we had gone to this cloud-based storage. And to complicate matters, whatever they were turning in by hand, because we couldn't do online grading anymore, we couldn't enter those grades either. So nothing was getting graded, everything had slowed to a halt, and we did have those 30 books as a classroom set, but I had 220 students, and you can't give out 30 books to 220 students so that they can practice these math problems that they are supposed to be learning. So although we did have a classroom set of books, it wasn't sufficient. And again, this is an example of when technology needs to be taken into context. So let's move on to talk about how technology is not always beneficial. With technology and the advent of the internet, we have seen as a society an increase in isolationism. This has also come with depression, anxiety, and cyberbullying, all major problems to the smooth functioning of a school. In addition, there's also cyber-based crime, so we need to be careful about the downsides of technology. Additionally, as we just talked about, context, the location, the haves and the have-nots. Traditionally, the inner city and the rural areas are lower in socioeconomic status, which means they don't have access to the latest and greatest, which puts the inner city schools at a disadvantage in grabbing the latest technology. The rural schools have an additional disadvantage in infrastructure. A lot of the rural schools just don't have the infrastructure. I have students that live on working ranches. Not only do they not have broadband access, sometimes they don't even have a cell signal. So we need to be aware that not all of the country is at the same state technologically speaking. And lastly, let's talk about removing teachers from the teaching equation. This goes back to that interpersonal connection and the isolationism. If we stare at the monitors and we focus in on the technology, we take the teacher, or at least the heart of the teacher, out of the classroom, and we miss out on that relationship building between teachers and students. We also end up tying ourselves to corporate products that are not as easily changed. So if you want to alter a lesson or alter quiz questions, but they're all based online and they're all stored remotely on a corporate server, some are not easy to alter. And so we've lost our flexibility and we're now tied to a corporate product. Additionally, the opposing essay in this chapter noted that not all teachers are ready to embrace technology. They are aware that not all teachers are the same, but what they didn't do is they didn't go to the next logical step, and that not all teachers teach the same way. So let me give you an example from my own personal experience. This is going to be a tale of two geometry teachers, strengths and weaknesses. It can also be a tale of two different, varying in ability geometry classrooms. So in one instance, we might want to see geometry tools, actual physical tools in action. Maybe this teacher has a background in drafting or in civil engineering. They want to show how these are used in the real world. They want to have the kids actually use the tools and create the shapes in front of them. They want to have the kids make the angles, make the circles, make parallels with transversals. They want the students using their hands and getting in and seeing how is this used in the real world, where is it applied, and getting some of the students who learn really well with hands, with mechanics, to understand these concepts. But maybe there's another class or another teacher with different strengths and different backgrounds. This teacher might use shepherd's tables to show that you can't always trust what you see. So the shepherd's tables are these two tables, and the question is which table is longer. Digitally, we could very easily create tools to measure these tables and then bring these tools together and say, oh, they are actually the same length. And then take that idea from this visual illusion that these aren't actually different tables. They're actually also the same width and the same length, and apply it to geometry. And notice that, okay, when we have lines with a transversal, if they're parallel, certain angles are automatically congruent, certain angles are automatically supplementary, and we can prove it. We don't have to rely on our eyes. Or with triangles, there are ways to prove if triangles are similar or if they're congruent, and we don't have to rely on our eyes. And a lot of these things can be made into digital manipulatives, and that can be really, really useful for students to see them in action and to rely on the geometric proofs to prove their argument that these are similar or these are congruent. So in conclusion, technology needs to be evaluated in the context in which it is used. Can it even be used? Is this a good fit for the teacher? Is this a good fit for the classroom? We need to recognize its downsides. It is not always beneficial. And we need to understand that mandating its use can take the teacher out of the classroom and focus on the monitor, lose that human-to-human connection, and in some cases lose a teacher's strengths in teaching because maybe those strengths are not coming from a technological background. And we need to recognize that non-technological backgrounds have worth as well and need to be included in the classroom. So thank you for listening to my presentation. And these are the sources that I consulted while making it.